hit the subscribe button. Currently only 1.7% of my viewers are. Subscribe once we hit 1,000 subscribers. I'll release an exclusive special video, just for you.
The starship shuddered violently as it entered Deathworld's atmosphere, alarms blaring. Brace yourselves. Captain Sarah Mitchell shouted over the deafening noise, her knuckles white as she gripped the controls. The ship's descent was anything but smooth, with turbulence rocking it like a toy in a storm. Tom Walker, the Australian survival expert, steadied himself against the wall, his eyes scanning the chaotic scene. "We've faced worse," he muttered, though even he knew this landing was going to be rough. With a final jolt, the ship crashed into the rugged terrain, skidding to a halt amid a spray of dirt and rock. Silence, broken only by the occasional groan of the ship's hull, followed the cacophony. Mitchell unbuckled herself and turned to her crew, her voice firm despite the circumstances. "Is everyone all right?" Dr. Ilara Voss, the team's xenobiologist, pushed herself up from the floor, her face pale but determined. "I'm fine, just a bit shaken." "How's the ship?" "Damaged but not beyond repair," Tom replied, already moving to assess the situation. "We need to get a shelter up before nightfall. This planet isn't known for its hospitality." The team quickly sprang into action. Mitchell directed operations, her mind working through the logistics. Tom scavenged materials from the wreckage, his experience in survival situations proving invaluable. Ilara began setting up her equipment, her scientific curiosity battling with her growing apprehension about the planet's dangers. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the desolate landscape, the team's camp took shape. A makeshift shelter stood amid the wreckage, offering some semblance of protection. Tom, examining the surroundings, spotted movement in the distance. "Something's out there," he warned, his voice low and tense. Ilara joined him, peering into the darkness. "What kind of life forms are we dealing with here?" Tom shrugged, his eyes never leaving the shifting shadows. "Predatory, if I had to guess. We need to stay vigilant." Night fell, and with it came the sounds of Deathworld's nocturnal inhabitants. Low growls and eerie howls echoed through the camp, keeping everyone on edge. Mitchell gathered her team, her expression serious. "We'll take turns keeping watch. Tom, you're up first." Hours passed, and Tom's watch was uneventful until he noticed a faint glow in the distance. His heart raced as he realized the glow was moving closer. He quickly alerted Mitchell. "Captain, we've got company." Mitchell grabbed her weapon and joined Tom at the edge of the camp. The glow grew brighter, revealing a massive, bioluminescent creature slowly making its way towards them. "We need to scare it off," she whispered. Tom nodded, formulating a plan. "Ilara, do we have any flares?" Ilara hurriedly produced a flare gun. "Here, take this." Tom aimed and fired a flare into the sky, the bright light momentarily blinding the creature. It roared in surprise, its luminescent form retreating into the darkness. The team breathed a collective sigh of relief, but the encounter left them rattled. "We need better defenses," Mitchell said, her mind already working on the next steps. "Tom, Ilara, let's brainstorm some ideas. We can't afford another close call like that." As the first light of dawn crept over the horizon, the team gathered to discuss their plans. Tom suggested using materials from the ship to create stronger barriers, while Ilara proposed setting up motion sensors to alert them of approaching dangers. "We'll need to work fast," Mitchell urged. "This planet is relentless, and we need to stay one step ahead." With renewed determination, the team set to work. Tom and Ilara's partnership strengthened as they collaborated on reinforcing their camp. Despite the constant threats, a sense of camaraderie began to build among the crew. Days passed in a blur of activity, each one bringing new challenges. The planet's hostile environment tested their limits, but their resolve never wavered. They adapted to their surroundings, using their ingenuity to survive. Ilara discovered an indigenous plant with medicinal properties, while Tom fashioned traps to capture smaller predators. The team's progress did not go unnoticed. From the safety of their observation posts, the Galactic Union watched in awe as the humans achieved what seemed impossible. Skepticism turned to admiration as they witnessed the extraordinary resilience and adaptability of this seemingly ordinary species. "Hold on to something!" Captain Sarah Mitchell yelled as the first gusts of wind struck, the shelter groaning under the strain. Outside, the sky had turned an ominous shade of black, swirling with the promise of destruction. The team scrambled to secure their camp, each member fully aware that their survival depended on their preparations. Tom Walker, drenched from head to toe, fought against the gale to reinforce the shelter with additional supports. "This storm is unlike anything I've seen," he shouted over the roaring wind. His hands moved swiftly, securing tarps and tightening ropes, his mind racing with every possible outcome. Inside the shelter, Dr. Alara Voss monitored their equipment, her fingers flying over the controls. "We're losing power," she announced, her voice tinged with urgency. The screens flickered, threatening to plunge them into darkness. She glanced at Mitchell, her eyes filled with a mix of fear and determination. "If we don't stabilize the generators, we're going to be in serious trouble." Mitchell nodded, her mind already formulating a plan. "Tom, can you get to the generators?" she asked, her tone resolute. Tom looked at the ferocious storm outside and then back at Mitchell. "I'll make it happen," he replied, grabbing his gear and heading out into the tempest. As Tom battled the elements to reach the generators, Alara continued to work tirelessly inside. She knew that without power, their defenses would fail, leaving them vulnerable to Deathworld's many dangers. The shelter shuddered with each powerful gust, the sound of debris crashing outside echoing through the space. Mitchell moved to Alara's side, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We've faced worse," she said, her voice steady. "We'll get through this." Alara nodded, taking a deep breath. "You're right. Let's make sure Tom has everything he needs." Outside, Tom struggled against the relentless wind and driving rain. He reached the generators, his fingers numb with cold as he worked to stabilize the power supply. Each moment felt like an eternity as the storm howled around him, but he pressed on, driven by a fierce determination to protect his team. Inside the shelter, the lights flickered and then steadied, a soft hum signaling the return of power. Alara let out a sigh of relief, her tension easing slightly. "He did it," she murmured, a small smile forming on her lips. Mitchell allowed herself a brief moment of relief before refocusing on their situation. "We're not out of the woods yet," she said. "This storm isn't letting up. We need to hold our ground until it passes." Hours passed in a blur of activity and tension. The team took turns reinforcing the shelter, monitoring equipment, and keeping watch for any signs of danger. The storm raged on, unyielding and merciless, but the humans held their ground, their resolve unwavering. As dawn approached, the storm began to abate, the howling winds gradually dying down to a mere whisper. The shelter, though battered and strained, had held. The team emerged, exhausted but victorious, into the pale light of the new day. Tom, drenched and weary, rejoined Mitchell and Alara. "We made it," he said, his voice hoarse but filled with pride. Mitchell smiled, a rare expression of warmth and gratitude. "Thanks to you, Tom. You saved us." Alara nodded in agreement. "Your quick thinking and bravery kept us safe. We owe you." Tom shook his head, modest as ever. "We're a team. We all played our part." As they surveyed the damage, a sense of accomplishment settled over them. They had faced Deathworld's fury and survived, their unity and resilience shining through. But even as they took stock of their situation, they knew this was only the beginning. The planet still held many dangers, and they would need to remain vigilant. Mitchell turned to her team, her expression resolute. "We've proven we can survive here, but we need to stay on our toes. Let's start repairs and fortify our defenses. We don't know what else this planet has in store for us." Elara and Tom nodded, ready to tackle the challenges ahead. With the storm behind them, their bond had strengthened, and their determination had only grown. They were no longer just a group of explorers, they were survivors, ready to face whatever Deathworld threw their way. The ground trembled beneath their feet as the massive storm approached, darker and more ferocious than anything they'd seen. Captain Sarah Mitchell stood firm, her eyes scanning the horizon. "Everyone, gather around," she commanded, her voice cutting through the rising wind. "We need to brace for impact and secure the shelter." Tom Walker, ever the survivalist, took stock of their resources. "We need to reinforce the barriers with anything we can find," he said, already moving toward a pile of salvaged materials. His hands worked quickly, securing planks and metal sheets to the shelter's frame. Dr. Elara Voss, despite the brewing storm, focused on her instruments. "I've been studying the patterns," she said, her voice laced with urgency. "This storm could last longer than the last one. We need to be ready for anything." Mitchell nodded, appreciating Elara's scientific acumen. "Tom, get the barriers up. Elara, help me secure the interior. We need to make sure our supplies are protected." As the team hustled, the sky darkened further, casting an eerie pall over the landscape. The wind howled like a living entity, and the first drops of rain splattered against their faces, cold and biting. Tom's muscles strained as he hammered the last plank into place, securing the shelter as best as he could. Inside, Elara meticulously checked their supplies, ensuring nothing was left exposed. "We need to ration our food and water more strictly," she noted, sealing a container. "This storm could cut us off for days." Mitchell looked around at her team, each member drenched but determined. "We've faced worse and come through stronger," she said, her voice unwavering. "Stick together, and we'll get through this too." The storm hit with a vengeance, the wind and rain assaulting their shelter relentlessly. The walls creaked and groaned under the strain, but held firm, a testament to their hard work and resilience. Hours passed in a blur of howling winds and lashing rain, the constant noise a reminder of the planet's hostility. As the storm raged, Tom and Elara took turns checking the barriers and tending to the equipment. The conditions outside were brutal, but their determination never wavered. Each moment was a test of their resolve, but they rose to the challenge, their bond growing stronger with every trial. Inside, Mitchell sat near the dim glow of a lantern, her mind racing with contingency plans. She knew they couldn't just survive, they needed to find a way to thrive. "Elara, any progress on that plant you found?" she asked, breaking the tense silence. Elara nodded, pulling out a sample of the indigenous flora. "I've been analyzing it. It has remarkable properties that could be used for medicine or even as a food source. We just need to figure out how to cultivate it." Tom, overhearing the conversation, joined them. "If we can cultivate it, we'll have a sustainable food source. That's a game changer," he said, his eyes lighting up with the possibilities. Mitchell leaned forward, her interest piqued. "Let's prioritize this. Once the storm passes, we'll focus on creating a secure area to grow these plants. Elara, you lead the research. Tom, you and I will work on expanding our defenses and establishing a garden." The storm continued to batter their shelter, but the team's spirits lifted as they discussed their plans. The challenge of cultivating a new food source gave them hope and a renewed sense of purpose. They were no longer just surviving, they were planning for a future on Deathworld. As dawn broke, the storm began to abate, leaving the landscape drenched and battered. The team emerged, weary but unbroken, ready to tackle the next phase of their mission. The air was thick with the smell of damp earth and the promise of new beginnings. Tom, his clothes still wet from the storm, looked at the horizon. "We need to start rebuilding immediately. The sooner we secure a food source, the better our chances." Elara, holding the plant sample carefully, nodded. "I'll need to set up a lab to study these plants properly. We'll need to understand their growth cycle and how to protect them from the elements." Mitchell, standing between them, felt a surge of pride. We've come this far together. We'll turn this planet into a home, one step at a time. The team set to work, their determination unwavering. Tom and Mitchell began reinforcing their shelter and creating a secure area for the garden, while Alara meticulously documented her findings and prepared for cultivation. As the sun rose higher, casting a warm glow over the rugged landscape, the team's spirits soared. They had faced Deathworld's fury and emerged stronger, their unity and resilience forging a path forward. They were no longer just visitors, they were pioneers, ready to tame the wild and carve out a place for themselves on this unforgiving planet. The dawn was tinged with an eerie calm, the air thick with anticipation. Captain Sarah Mitchell stood at the edge of their camp, scanning the horizon. The days following the storm had been a whirlwind of activity, each team member pushing their limits to fortify their position and cultivate the indigenous plants. Now, with their new food source showing signs of success, a new threat loomed on the horizon. Tom Walker approached, his face grim. Scouts have spotted movement in the valley. It looks like a large pack of predators. They're heading straight for us. Mitchell's jaw tightened. We've prepared for this. Everyone knows their roles. Let's show Deathworld what we're made of. The team gathered, their expressions a mix of determination and trepidation. Dr. Alara Voss adjusted her equipment, her mind already calculating the odds. Our defenses are strong, but we need to ensure they hold. If those creatures breach our perimeter, we're in serious trouble. Mitchell nodded, her gaze sweeping over her crew. Tom, you and I will man the front lines. Alara, keep monitoring our sensors and provide us with real-time updates. We can't afford any surprises. As they took their positions, the ground began to tremble, a low rumble growing louder. The pack of predators, massive and ferocious, appeared on the ridge, their eyes glowing with hunger. The team's carefully laid traps and reinforced barriers stood between them and the beasts. Tom's heart pounded in his chest as the first wave of creatures charged. Here they come, he shouted, gripping his weapon tightly. The traps activated, spikes and nets springing into action, but some of the more agile predators managed to avoid them. Mitchell fired her rifle, the shots ringing out in rapid succession. Hold the line, she commanded, her voice steady despite the chaos. The creatures snarled and snapped, relentless in their assault. Alara's voice crackled through the comms. 2 more packs approaching from the east and west. We're surrounded. Tom glanced at Mitchell, their eyes meeting in silent understanding. We need to draw them away from the shelter, he said. If they focus on us, Alara can reroute power to the barriers and give us a chance to regroup. Mitchell nodded. Do it. Alara, prepare to divert all remaining power to the barriers on my signal. Tom and Mitchell moved to a more exposed position, firing their weapons and shouting to attract the predator's attention. The beasts followed, their predatory instincts locking onto the perceived weaker prey. Alara's voice was calm but urgent. Ready when you are, Captain. Now. Mitchell shouted. The barriers surged with energy, crackling as they repelled the attacking creatures. The plan worked, most of the predators turned their focus towards Tom and Mitchell, giving the barriers a moment of reprieve. The fight was intense, every second a battle for survival. Tom's movements were a blur of precision and instinct, each shot finding its mark. Mitchell was a force of nature, her leadership unwavering even in the face of overwhelming odds. But the sheer number of predators began to take its toll. We can't keep this up forever, Tom panted, a deep gash on his arm dripping blood. Mitchell's eyes narrowed. We don't need to. Just a little longer. Suddenly, a deafening roar cut through the air, and the largest of the predators emerged, its massive form dwarfing the others. It charged directly at Tom, its eyes filled with lethal intent. Time seemed to slow. Tom braced himself, but just as the creature was about to strike, Mitchell leaped in front of him, her rifle blazing. The beast faltered, its momentum broken, and Tom seized the opportunity, delivering a final, fatal shot. The creature collapsed, its lifeless body crashing to the ground. The remaining predators, sensing the loss of their leader, began to retreat, their fierce resolve broken. Breathing heavily, Tom turned to Mitchell. "You saved my life." Mitchell managed a tired smile. "We save each other. That's how we survive." Ilara's voice came through the comms, filled with relief. The barriers held. "We did it." The team regrouped, their bodies aching but their spirits unbroken. They had faced Deathworld's fury and emerged victorious once again. As they tended to their wounds and assessed the damage, a sense of triumph settled over them. Mitchell looked around at her team, pride swelling in her chest. "We've proven we can survive anything this planet throws at us. We're not just surviving anymore, we're thriving." Tom and Ilara nodded, their faces reflecting the hard-earned confidence they all felt. The challenges of Deathworld had forged them into a formidable team, united by their shared struggle and determination. As the sun set, casting a golden glow over the rugged landscape, the team knew that their journey was far from over. But they were ready for whatever came next, their bond unbreakable and their resolve stronger than ever.